Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the podcast, or the pilot of the podcast, the TPWc podcast pilot, episode number 4. We got um Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2. We got Khamzat Chimaev versus Usman, and we got McGregor versus USADA. So it's me, your host, I'm King of Crackdown, with the co-host Nikki Betts. Let's get into it. So first, let's start off with UFC 294. We're going to focus on this a lot. It's been an interesting week. It really hasn't even been a week. It's been like a couple days. A whole lot has happened in literally like a span of 2-3 days, maybe even less than that. Like, we had 2 fights fall out. We had Costa fall out, and now Usman stepped in to fight Chimaev on short notice, very short notice. And then we had but before that we have Oliveira fall out with a cut over his eye, and then Volkanovski steps in on short notice, and now they're about to have that big rematch after that very close fight that a lot of people feel Volkanovski won. They're about to rematch on short notice, so a lot to talk about. But yeah, and we're gonna start with UFC 294, then get into the other stuff. But yeah, so yeah, first off, Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2 is a very interesting matchup. It's kind of happened in an interesting way. Like, you would expect, like, this 2 fight. The first fight really didn't get the flowers it deserved going into the fight, because you had these 2 great fighters, especially Volkanovski, accomplishing all that he accomplished. It should have been a lot more promotion on it. The fight should have felt a lot bigger. And it's not a matter of like, oh, the fight just sucked or anything like that, or I didn't need this, didn't need that. It was a fight that very much deserved all the respect and should have been hyped up much more than it did. But I feel like the UFC just felt like the fight should sell itself, or maybe they just didn't care because it wasn't McGregor involved in any way. So they're like, we're not going to promote this fight. But it just felt like the fight was not promoted. And again, it's feel like the fight's not being promoted. I feel like the fight's being promoted by the fact that it is happening on short notice. Like, oh my gosh, shocker. Fill the news media with the fact that this fight is happening because it's on short notice. But if the fight, again, was happening like short notice, I mean, not short notice, this fight was again scheduled to happen, I feel like they would once again not really give it much attention. Like, they don't, not giving no good promo. It's just the very bare basics. So they expecting the fight to sell itself, and I do not like that. But very good matchup here once again. Just don't really like it for Volkanovski too much, and that makes it hard to sell because he is the smaller man. He's coming off the loss, so he's, as far as their matchup, he's 0-1 against the younger guy. He's going up in weight. He's coming on short notice, so he's giving him every single advantage to the younger guy. It's the younger, bigger guy who has a win over him and who has already had to train for full camp. And as Makhachev said, it's going to be excuses, or probably don't come up with no excuses. But is it really excuses, or is it the truth? But hey, Volkanovski is one of the greatest of all times, and great people do great things. But it's going to be hard to see him pull that one off, especially in this current situation. And also, like, when you think about that one, like, before we get to the other fight, let's talk about the featherweight division involved in that. Like, what's going to happen with this loss? Like, now he has lost 2. He could potentially lose 2 fights, and then he's gonna be going out there to fight Ilia Topuria or Max Holloway. If he fights Max Holloway, he probably could beat him again. Ilia Topuria, that might be a whole different thing. Coming down there fighting a guy who, has stylistically has a very tough style, for fast hands, good wrestling. That could be a tough fight to come down to if Ilia Topuria is the one waiting for him coming down, especially after a loss. And if he does win, what happens to the featherweight division? So it's a lot of questions. But how you feel about that whole this fight on the card in particular, and what could happen? What could it mean depending on who wins and how they win? Like, in this Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2 rematch on short notice. How you feel?
Yeah, I think the only fight that makes sense is Islam versus Charles Oliveira, just because everybody thought if Beneil Dariush fought Islam that he might have a chance of beating him, but it was just not even close to being the case. I think it definitely leaves a lot of questions in the featherweight division for sure. Joe Rogan said that he thought Volkanovski won the first fight. There's reasons why he won. Me personally, I literally went to the casino down the street from my house. I put 3,000 down on Islam to win against Volkanovski, and I fell asleep the night of the fight because I was so confident in Islam's ability. But Volkanovski humanized Islam. Islam's always looked dominant, always looked amazing, except for his, the knockout, the only I think loss on his record. But I think this gives Volkanovski the chance to maybe come back and do something. I think it leaves so many questions open, like what happens to the featherweight division? Because if Volkanovski wins, Islam gets an immediate rematch. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just how it works. And I think it would put the featherweight division in a lot of limbo, like how Davidson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno fought 4 times, and the belt never really went to anybody else until Pantoja picked it up. But I definitely I'm just as excited for this fight as I would have been for Charles Oliveira. I would have rather watched Charles Oliveira than in Islam, just because I think Charles Oliveira wasn't there that night. I think he was checked out or something. Because when he fought Beneil Dariush, he just looked like a completely different person. And maybe Islam does the same or something similar as to what he did the first time. But I think it's like the fight between Volkanovski and Volkanovski, and he just
Holloway?
fought. No, he
Oh,
just
Yair Rodriguez?
Yair Rodriguez. I was really questioning, even though how well Volkanovski did, just because of the momentum and the style of Yair Rodriguez. I thought, this could be potentially a really good fight, and it was very dominant one way. But yeah, I think it definitely leaves people questioning a lot of, well, what's next? What happens next? And I think that it's definitely a topic that people are interested in. But I can't wait. UFC 294. Best card of the year. All my favorite fighters are on that card. Islam, Chimaev, Sher, Magomedov. A bunch of people are. It's gonna be a great night with really skilled fighters. What do you think about Usman and Chimaev now?
I think that's a good fight. But yeah, I think that's a good fight. I definitely think for the headlines, I hope it sells well. But me personally, I feel like it's a couple years too late and at the wrong weight class and on short notice, a lot of things about it. But hey, a fight's a fight, at the end of the day, like it could be like don't feel like it's the right time. It could feel like, oh, is this guy just at this time now just a shoe in to win and stuff. It could definitely feel like that. Oh, he's bigger, he's younger, he's at a different weight class or higher weight class on short notice. And yeah, like he just matches up with him so well. And again, he's younger and bigger and at a higher weight class. And Usman coming on short notice, smaller guy. So like the wrestling probably gonna cancel off anything. But if like Usman take him down, he ain't really gonna do no damage. But if Chimaev take him down, he has much better submission grappling, or at least has shown to be a much better submission threat. So like kind of like in all areas, it seemed like Usman could kind of match him. But when if like I feel if Usman gets touched by Chimaev, he probably get knocked out real clean. But I feel like Chimaev, the younger fighter, bigger fighter, he can eat some of Usman's power. He don't want to eat. He don't want to do that. But if he could take some shots, yeah, I feel like he can afford to take some shots that Usman can't. And again, if he gets taken down, I feel like he could get back up, and Usman not gonna really present much of a threat on top. First, if Chimaev takes Usman down, we have seen how dangerous he is on the ground, how dangerous he is on top. Like he actually has finishing ability where Usman has never really shown that finishing ability on top, at least not at a high level of the game. But yeah, this just seemed like it don't seem like it's a great fight on paper, but when I really think about it, like breaking it down, it don't seem that exciting to me. When I like try to predict it, like way back, and I think when Usman still was champion, like predicting it in the future. But yeah, I hope that the fight turns out, to be an exciting fight. I hope Usman brings it and shows the case. We didn't expect Gilbert Burns to give him a great fight, but Gilbert Burns went out there and gave him a great fight. Usman beat Gilbert Burns. He actually had an easier time than Chimaev did with Gilbert Burns. So yeah, a fight's a fight at the end of the day. If Usman brings it, he's a great champion. He one of the greatest of all time. So one of the greatest of all time, like they're gonna show up. So can't just sleep on him. But honestly, prediction wise and how I'm really seeing this one, I'm not super excited about it. But honestly, I think it's a much better fight than the Costa fight, to be honest. And also does a lot more for Chimaev than the Costa fight. Because Costa, no, he's a decent name. He's been talking and chirping a lot, but he hasn't been doing a whole lot of winning over the past years. He's mostly been losing. His only win in all these years recently has been Luke Rocco, but he lost to Vittori, he lost to Adesanya, and other than that, like what has he been doing? Just getting one win over Luke Rocco in the past like 4 years. So he had like one win in the last 4 years. So yeah, a win over Usman, one of the greatest welterweights of all time, and one of like top 10, at least top 15 greatest MMA fighters of all time. Definitely does a lot for him, and it kind of gives him that welterweight title shot that he never got or didn't really earn, to be honest, because he was in position to get this stuff, but he didn't do the work because he's been inactive, I don't know, injured or doing what. So, but yeah, good fight. But I definitely got some things to feel a little bit differently than that kind of prevent me from being as excited about this fight as I would want to be. But how you feel about it?
Yeah, I think that there's just so many questions about this fight. I think, like you said, on paper, it's a very competitive fight. I think the fact that Chimaev struggled with Gilbert Burns, and like you said, Gilbert Burns was kind of dominated by Kamaru Usman. It didn't really look competitive at all. Makes me think, well, what's going to happen when he fights Kamaru Usman? I think I would rather see the Costa fight, um, but I think this is going to be a more technical fight. I think you can relate it to this. I think there's a fight this weekend between Dylan Dennis, Logan Paul, and KSI versus Tommy Fury. I think the more competitive fight is um is KSI and Tommy Fury, and what looks like should be a one-way fight is the Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis, just because Dylan's never boxed. But the hype that Dylan built was similar to the hype that Costa built, like in a way, because everybody was like, man, he's talking mad smack about Hamzat Chimaev, and you could clearly tell these people do not like each other, and that's why I related to that fight, because just because of all the news that I've heard about Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul. But it's definitely, no matter who Hamzat fights, it's going to be my favorite fight. I just like Hamzat so much because he's just so relentless, and so, like, his dog is just, man, it's crazy. But this, I think, is going to be more technical, and it's really going to showcase who's the better fighter. And I think 2 years ago, I don't know how this fight would go, but I think right now where Kamaru Usman's at, and the fact that Chimaev was also going to fight someone who's good on the ground but very good on the feet, and Kamaru has gotten way better on the feet since his training with Justin Gaethje and their team. So yeah, who do you think wins that fight between Chimaev and Usman?
And I already kind of pretty much alluded to it, so I'm got Chimaev winning that one. So that's my prediction for that one. But when the full prediction comes out, I have a further one, but I pretty much already kind of hinted at everything that kind of the focal points of that fight.
Yeah,
And
I
who you
just
think
was
wins?
interested. I think I want Usman to win. I mean, not Usman. I want Chimaev to win. I think Chimaev can do it. He's just really got to show up, and he's got to be on weight. You know what I mean? That's going to be that's the biggest problem he dealt with this time last year with the Nate Diaz fight. He had to fight Kevin Holland because he didn't make the weight. So I'm really rooting for him and hoping that he makes the weight so that this fight can happen. And probably my that's probably my biggest worry, and my biggest thought is, will he make the weight? Like, can he make the weight? Is he gonna make the weight? So yeah.
So he said you have issue with making weight. You think it's gonna be Usman having issues with making weight?
No, Chimaev,
Oh, you think
because
Chimaev?
yeah, because remember last year Chimaev was supposed to fight Nate Diaz at 170, and he went to the scale and he was 8 pounds over, and the doctor told him he could no longer cut weight, that he
Yeah.
wasn't healthy enough, and they had to switch it to Kevin Holland.
I think he should be fine. He's at middleweight, so I think he should be okay. At least better than trying to make the welterweight. So I think he should be able to make weight without
Are they
issue.
fighting at welterweight? I think that's what it
Not they're
is.
fighting at middleweight because it was
Oh,
supposed to be against Costa, so it's a middleweight fight. So Usman
oh,
coming in on short nose and fighting at middleweight for the first time ever.
wow. Okay. That changes everything. I think now it gives I think Usman has a little bit of a disadvantage there then, because Hamza was training to make 185, and I think it could just give him a little extra power. But either way, I'll always root for Kamaru Usman. I think he, like you said, top 15 of all time, best welterweight possibly of all top, and that maybe probably closer to top 10 of all time uh, as far as fighters go. What do you think is going on with this USADA thing, man? It's
Uh,
crazy.
Before we get to USADA, I want to kind of finish off with USADA, but let's wrap up one more thing with these the Charles Oliveira and Paulo Costa. Do you think those injuries were enough to pull out the fights, or you feel like they just wanted to be optimal, or you feel like that's something they could have fought through?
So Dana White, when I actually watched the Contender series I snagged a few of your picks, and they did beautifully. So you guys should definitely check out his Dana White's Contender Series, because he's definitely been on point. I think last week too he went 4-1 or something like that. It was pretty cool. But I guess Dana White said that had he flown to the UFC Apex, that they could have sewn the cut from the inside out, and he could have possibly been able to still fight. Like, even though I saw the gash and it was like this long and about as thick as my finger, they said that if they sewed it from the inside, that he possibly could have fought. But they called him after it happened, after he got it sewn up. So it's just so unfortunate, man. That would have been a fight I would have loved to see, more than Volkanovski. What do you think on it?
Um, I feel like Costa definitely could afford. I feel like Oliveira, he couldn't really afford to give Makhachev any weaknesses. I feel against Costa, it's like Costa. It's not like Oliveira gonna be going for no arm bars or they really any good kicks. Costa, I mean, Chimaev's striking really ain't all that good, so I can see if he was like some real explosive kicker. You know, he tried to block it or whatever. He could elbow could explode or whatnot, or he really do with any real good technical striking or something like that, or if he was some real good submission like that, or as far as like arm lock, like arm bars, thing like that, which I don't really see. I feel like Costa can afford to go in the fight with the injury he had, but I'm not no doctor, but I feel like with the injury, he was not really in no immediate concern. And I feel like even if it did explode, I feel like he could fight through that, especially for a 3-round fight. He probably would have taken more time off, but again, it's probably about the same amount of time that for him to take off. But again, I'm not no doctor because it easily could have case of he might go out there and knock Chimaev out, ring his chin, ring his neck, and then now he out for a year. But hey, I think another issue that presents with them not taking these fights. I feel like Oliveira could definitely get a rematch with Makhachev. But I feel like Costa, if he let this fight go away, he might never get this fight again. He might not. He got to hope Chimaev loses or he stacks some wins together. But I think, if Chimaev goes out there and looks spectacular, I think the Chimaev fight is gonna be real far out of the way. He's gonna have to probably fight a Whitaker, have to fight somebody, maybe a Dricus Duplessis or something. Duplessis loses or something. Because even if Duplessis out of his way, Chimaev wins, he's out of his way. He's gonna be really grasping for straws. He's gonna have to fight Pipers and Nichols and stuff to get back to those guys. So I think out of all the people, I feel like he's the one that he could have fought through and hit by not taking this fight. He's the one who hurts the most because now he's losing those big fights. Now even though he's not actually losing, he's losing those opportunities. Now he got to do more to get back to where he was already. So like he's losing by not even losing. So he would have been better off just fighting and give himself a shot. Yeah.
It
But
looked
now
like he. Oh no, I was just gonna say it looked like he couldn't bend his elbow at one point though. So you never know. You would think that he could have made it, but it's so hard to tell. But it definitely, I think he wanted to. The UFC probably just was like, yeah, we're not gonna do this. But I definitely agree. I think this is Charles Oliveira's last shot if Islam wins to possibly beat Islam. Because after that, I just don't know how that goes. But yeah, that was my
yeah,
thought.
I think Oliveira got shot because nobody really care about Matus getting right. He really got no chance against
Right.
so nobody care about Matus. So Oliveira definitely got chances. The lightweight division got the most people, but it's still like barren up top. Like it's barren and boring at the top. So he beats Volkanovski again. Who's next for the fight? He said he wants to fight Leon Edwards, so that might be an issue for him. But outside of like trying to fight the welterweight champion, it's really very open at the lightweight division. Like nobody cares for don't see him to choke out Poirier again. See Gage get choked out for the third time by got choked out by Khabib, got choked out by Oliveira. Now he get choked out by Makhachev. Somebody care to see those guys fight Makhachev. To be honest. So if Makhachev don't get that super fight, I think Oliveira's right in the line. I think he will take the Oliveira fight. He'll get one more fight before he'll try to go for the super fight. So I think he's in a good position. I think Costa the one that's gonna hurt most. But now to our next one. Well, not our next one, but the next topic, next subject. We're gonna talk about the year of the dog. There's been a lot of dogs biting. It's like spooky season. It's Halloween. It's October, and now we got November, December. Holiday season are coming through. A couple more fight cards for the year before it ends. But it's been a great year for dogs. You had Gaethje get his get back over Poirier. We've seen in a dynamic fashion, finished him. We seen Strickland come through and beat Adesanya when nobody thought he had a chance at all, and he went out there and beat Adesanya pretty thoroughly. He didn't finish him, but he beat him pretty thoroughly, dropped him. Had Adesanya look spooked out there. We just seen Bobby Green pull off a big upset over Grant Dawson, and I'm pretty sure it's been some dogs I missed, but there's definitely some big fights left. Probably the biggest one left. Well, Oliveira would have been a big one. He could have been another big dog that could have potentially won. We got Miocic, who's everyone's sleeping on. That could be a big dog. We still got I think Kobe Covington is fighting for this in the year. So I think those kind of two that stick out most. Well, let me just say three. Because Volkanovski could potentially win. Usman could potentially win. You got Miocic, he could potentially win, and you got Kobe Covington, he could potentially win. So it's one of the big ones that won. We got Sean O'Malley, he won. So it's been a good year for dog lately. And stuff has just been happening. These guys been coming in and winning these fights. But how you feel about this year of the dog? You kind of saying eyeing any dogs to potentially win and win big, cash on those, or are you think as far as for the most part, Barbosa got a good chance, but do you feel like any of these dogs that you really are eyeing that you might feel like I might sprinkle something on them, or I feel like they shouldn't even be a dog and I'm gonna put some good money on them for this year before they ends?
Man, there's so many. I like you said, how can we keep track of all these people that have been minus or plus 500s that have just completely shown their ability to upset the odds? And I think that plays a huge factor in our betting. Man, like Sean Strickland, I think Volkanovski, like Joe Rogan believes that he possibly won that, and he was a huge dog. My biggest dog right now that I'm looking at is Yuri Prohaska versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is an elite kickboxer. He's definitely got the ability to prevent takedowns. But Yuri Prohaska is just so dynamic. He's just so awkward and athletic at the same time. I just don't see how he's the dog in this one. Like you would think he'd be a minus 200 and Alex Pereira would be, easily a minus 170 plus 170 plus 200. It's just, and you have to be very careful. And also some of the time you have to bet on the dog when it's just so insane. Like I bet on Bobby Green just because of what's been happening between Sean O'Malley, and I watched that live, and Sean Strickland. Like those two fights, I just didn't see going that way. I thought that Aljamain Sterling was going to be able to, at some point, get him down and then just repeat until he got his hand raised, and that was starched completely. What do you think about Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira Yuri Prohaska being the underdog?
I understand it. I feel like it's definitely a style matchup. I think with this one, because Yuri does leave himself susceptible to getting caught with hooks and this counters in general. Like he walks in, he kind of hangs his chin out, kind of points it to you, and like pretty much begs you to punch him in the chin. And he has been rocked in every single fight. And I feel like he does that same thing against Oliveira. He's gonna be sleeping. And the fact that he's coming off this long layoff, he's coming in with like 40% of an arm or something like that. I feel like he's very vulnerable. And even without that, he still already had tendencies to get caught. He's getting rocked several times by Oliveira. By Glover Teixeira. He got rocked by several times by Dominic Reyes. He got rocked by I would say Volkanovski. What's his name? He got rocked by but yeah, plenty of guys. I'm forgetting another guy's name, but yeah. Every single fight he has had in UFC, he has gotten rocked. And not just like slightly rocked that you didn't see. It was noticeably rocked in every single one of those fights, if not multiple times in those fights. And I feel like Oliveira can do some damage, but I definitely see it's MMA at the end of the day. It's kind of hard to imagine also that Pereira will come in and with this little bit of a resume coming in and be a two-weight champion already. This shorter time, it just seemed a little bit too easy, a little bit too picturesque. So I definitely see that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Yuri Prohaska didn't look to be awkward and come in and been training wrestling and look to take him down. He might not be the greatest wrestler offensively or defensively. And this might not be a stylistic matchup where Yuri Prohaska just his style is to wrestle. Like in reality, he's more of a scrambler. Like he does well against wrestle because he can scramble, get back to his feet, tire them out, and just pick them apart. So that's probably his best stylistic matchup typically. Unless he goes in with like some real phenomenal BJJ guy, but for the most part, most levels, especially at this level and this weight class, he can scramble well against the grapplers. and then pretty much just put a pace on him and finish them. That's what he could do. But his style not a guy that's typically going to offensively grapple you, but who knows what he's been training the time off. He does look in there, and Pereira hasn't been expecting it, or he's bigger and stronger than Pereira is expecting. He definitely can exploit Pereira. I don't think Pereira's grappling is all that good. He might have, made it look decent, but it's really probably still like a cardboard box over a big hole in the wall. He may look decent, but maybe Prochazka can maybe even catch him with something, catch him with some crazy spinning back elbow, drop him, and get on top and start to ground and pound him and bust him up real bad. Or maybe he could just catch him off balance and drag him to mat and then really start to just weigh on him and take his back. Because even Adesanya, who typically does not wrestle, was able to wrestle at that point. So you can't count anything out of there. I would say I would give Prochazka a better chance at wrestling him than Adesanya. And Adesanya had like a whole 3 minutes on top of him. So would not be surprised if that would be his path. But I feel like striking-wise, I feel like he definitely leaves a lot of openings that I feel like Pereira will be more than willing to capitalize on and turn his light switch off. So I understand why he's a dog for sure, for all things going in, but he definitely has a great chance to win this one. And he's already an unpredictable guy. So if anyone would say one of the great dogs left for this year, I think he's a great dog here. Would I pick him? Probably not. But he's a great dog, and I might just pick in the distance because I think both these guys will likely finish the other no matter who wins. But yeah, what you think about it?
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I think you're absolutely right that Yuri definitely leaves himself open to get hit. But I think his BJJ and his wrestling is a little bit underrated just because of what he did to Glover Teixeira, who is mentoring Alex Pereira. And I think if Yuri Prochazka's smart, which he seems to be, he would go in there with a grapple heavy game plan and overwhelm Alex, because Alex looked very tired in his last fight against Jan Blachowicz. I thought that Jan Blachowicz won it, and most people did as well, and it ended up just being Alex Pereira. And I know that the UFC, pushes their dogs, and sometimes like the fight between Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon, a lot of people thought Paddy lost, but Paddy won. And I guess there's different rules and whatnot for how they judge stuff, but I definitely think Jan did more of the control, had kept the pace a little bit longer, and I don't think that I think if Yuri gets touched by Alex, that he definitely has a chance of going down. But I think it's a solid dog. I'm definitely going to bet inside the distance as well, and I'm definitely going to bet the money line I already have. So I'm super excited for that one. I think it's a really cool co-main event for a John Jones fight, and I think it definitely builds the card well.
All right, cool. So here we talk about a year of dog, and definitely some good fights coming up, and definitely some good dogs right here. So Prochazka looking like a good dog who can bite. Kobe Covington, at least stylistically wise, like a dog who can bite. I'm not really leaning him in that dog. And I think probably the sleeper one, to be honest, is Miocic. He's a very sleeper one, and he has a style that has stylistically caused John Jones issues, like a wrestler boxer type fighter, or a fighter who at least can address his wrestling, keep him on the feet, and then really on paper and at least through their careers have shown better boxing. So that's an issue. But yeah, and also people will sleep on the fact that John Jones has been around longer and been fighting at a higher level than Stephen Moe. He might be physically younger, well, age-wise younger, but really in mileage, he has far more mileage than Steve Moe. Like, he been way more fights, been on top since he's been 23, been on top before champion for Miocic barely even was in the UFC. So way more mileage, way more years on it. Well, way more fight years on it. So can't sleep on Miocic there. I'm picking Jones, but hey, can't sleep on Miocic. Never sleep on that man. But now to our final topic of this podcast, this episode of the pilot. McGregor versus USADA. This is just so interesting. It's not even just it goes beyond McGregor, but definitely McGregor bordered about. So you kind of got two sides of the coin. Like, let's talk about how USADA kind of built their relationship or began their relationship with the UFC. So their relationship really began because Chris Weidman cried a wolf. That's really what it became, because we saw TRT Jesus Vitor Belfort, when he was all buffed out, had the cross symbol on his head, and he was spinning back kicks and jumping front kicks and knocking everyone out in like minutes. Like, we're looking like the greatest steroid creation that the world had ever seen. And Weidman was like, I don't want to fight that man. He's clearly on all the drugs. and I do not want to fight that man. And then Vitor Belfort already been up there in age and surviving all the fact that he was on all the drugs, came back shrunken out after like 3 years of not fighting and not on the same drugs, or at least not the same amount of drugs. And then Chris Weidman tooled him, but that was really the start of the USADA relationship. I don't know if that was the immediate start, but that definitely gotten them much more involved. And shortly after that, that relationship began, and you clearly saw it in the drastic build difference from Vitor Belfort when he was before USADA than after USADA. But now, like, that's the start of it, and the end of it is because Conor McGregor, the star, like, so they started because they were scared of one man, or Weidman cried wolf, and now the UFC's like, oh, this guy McGregor, look at him. He's on all the drugs. He's trying to go into his TRT. I mean, he's trying to go into his TRT Jesus Vitor era of his career. And USADA's trying to block it. So we're going to say, hey, this guy makes us millions and millions of dollars. He's the reason why our company is valued at $1 billion, or pushed us from like hundreds of millions to $1 billion. He pushed us up. Like, we were already a multi-million dollar company. We were already go without him, but he made us better, or at least monetarily better. So we're going to do what we can to get our boy maybe 3 more years out of his fights by allowing him to drug up. So USADA, you got to dip. We haven't had a McGregor fight in a couple years now, so we're ending our relationship. You know, we're not even hiding the fact that we're doing it, because he's supposed to come back like the first, second, third, or something like, middle of the year. And it just so happens at the beginning of the year, that's when their relationship ends. So it's clear, and USADA even saying, so no one even hiding the fact that they're clearly wanting their boy McGregor to be able to juice up, and that McGregor probably wasn't able going to be able to pass that test. So a lot of sketchy stuff. And honestly, I don't like it, because I can see if you're just doing it in general, you just feel like, oh, for the fact that the fighters were being improperly abused to take tests at some time. But the reality, they did it for money, and it's all on one particular fighter, and they're not even trying to hide it. So it just don't look good. And who are you trying to say? McGregor has already lost plenty of times. He's not going to be no champion. Let's just cut the script. You can let him come in there, tell McGregor, stop. You're not going to win anyway. Stop taking drugs. You might be able to be Michael Chandler. You get one more win. But as far as really being a true title challenger, at this point, you're just a gimmick, an act. You're a good fighter, okay fighter, but you're not championship top tier material anymore. And you're alcoholic cokehead at this point. So, and you're not John Jones. John Jones could get away with that. He's been great this whole time, been an alcoholic cokehead steroid user, but you're not John Jones. You might make more money than him, sell more tickets than him, might be more this and that, but you're not this winner. You're not this great fighter. You're not nowhere near the GOAT list or the Mount Rushmore or anything. At least not maybe on Mount Rushmore for money and pay-per-view and sales. But yeah, it's not a good look at all. And again, if they did that for John Jones, it would not be a good look either. Like, so no matter who they do, it's not a good look, especially for one fighter. I can see if they try to disguise it as a whole thing. They like, oh, USADA costs too much money. This money could be going to the fighters, or they did this to fighters or not to fighters. Are they wrongly accused hundreds of fighters who were all good boys, good church boys? But do for one fighter is just not a good look. And I don't think they fully see it. I think they see the money right now, but they don't see what this could happen or how this could shake up the weight class. Or matter of fact, I just don't think they care. They're like, hey, Brazilians about to go back to being like half the champions once again. Because before you saw the Brazilians and U.S. fighters were like neck and neck. Like, you had half the champions were American, half the champions were Brazilian. And that's no knock on Brazilians. It's what it is. Like, before USADA, they were literally half the champions. I mean, they still the second greatest nation in MMA by far. So Russia nowhere near close to them. They got like 30, 20 champions. Russia got like 4. So they nowhere near as close. Russia is, but US got like 60. So, but still, it just is what it is. I'm just saying the honest truth of what it was. Half the champions were Brazilian prior to USADA. And then it kind of cut down to like 2-3 champions were Brazilian versus like half and half. But how you feel about this situation? You feel like about them doing it like really for the McGregor money, and how you feel like this is going to affect the sport going forward? Are you feel like they're going to get the last 2-3 years out of McGregor and then cut it, or you feel like they're going to be like just like goodbye USADA for the next 10 years? How you feel?
Man, it just leaves like me baffled. I'm like, well, what happens next? What do they do? Do they just let all the champions get, on juice, and now everybody's, got a little bit, they all have the same equal, edge because they're using TRT or testosterone, you know what I mean, different types, and I think it's a bad move. But this just came out like 16 minutes ago. Let's try and get it on camera. It says Hunter Campbell and Jeff Nowitzki slam USADA, and they say what they have done to Connor is disgusting. I think if they disguise it as they were waking fighters up at 7 o'clock in the morning the day before the weigh-in and making them, stay there until they had to go to the bathroom, and they're cutting weight, but they have to pee in a cup. You know what I mean? And they're trying to, water load and then release all that water in, a short period of time. So I think those things probably would have been better disguised, but I just don't. I think it's incredible how big the UFC has become, and the fact that they started using USADA, like you said, and to make themselves look more professional. And now they've made it to the point where they're making whatever $10 billion a year. They could say the fans won't care if this happens, but what about the fighters? What about the people that are going to be affected by their ability to be natural and have that, that edge over the next person? Say Kamaru Usman doesn't do, anything, and then Colby Covington does, or, I'm not saying either fighter would or wouldn't, but like, would Kamaru Usman lose to him because Kobe's now on testosterone replacement? Like, it's scary for me to think about how it's going to affect the fighters, because they're going to be the ones affected the most. If they implemented the money that they were getting from they were paying to USADA to pay the fighters more, I think that would be awesome. I think it'd be a good way to justify what they're doing. Like you said, I think that's probably the only thing they can do at this point that won't look suspect. What happens next? What do you think is next for? Are they going to go to private testing company, or what do you think happens?
That's weird, because I think at one point, I think still at this point, I feel like it's going to kind of go back to the athletic commission, because they were drug testing before you saw it, just not as heavily and they're much more loose. So they're probably gonna go back to that. It's not gonna be random drug testing, but it's probably like one drug test or two drug tests. So it's probably gonna go back to that type of drug testing. It's not gonna go to USADA era drug testing where they literally following people around. Random visits gonna be probably like one or two tests that people that are already veterans could easily just bypass pretty easily. They're probably gonna go back to TRT being allowed and stuff and being able to pass by. So it's definitely gonna shift the thing up a little bit. I think that's gonna benefit wrestlers. We started to see a decline of wrestlers because they couldn't take TRT and all that other stuff no more, and everything was harder to pass this stuff. Because before then, there was a lot of these guys that were like 38, 40-year-olds, and they were finally catching their stride as wrestlers. Like now they could drug up and they have all this experience now. And at 40, they have now developed this and developed that, and now they could still wrestle for 15, 20 minutes. But now, when all the drugs started going away, you could defend two takedowns from the wrestler, and then you could pick the part on his feet. Like they had that good first round, they get tired second round, you finish them. And you start to see like you really look at how it has shifted. Look how many strikers are champion. Like Adesanya was champion, Pereira was champion, Jamal Hill was champion. You start to see a lot less wrestlers. You start to see some Dagestanis, but even them, it's like how many of them were actually champions? Like two. So it was very little wrestling champions. Aljamain Sterling, say if he was on like some type of drug or whatnot, he probably still be champion right now if he was on a drug, because he probably have crazy. He had Merab Dvalishvili cardio with his jiu-jitsu and his funkiness. Yeah, his funkiness. So he'd be like crazy. Like he would have beat Peter Yan pretty easily because he would have been able to wrestle him without getting tired. And both fights would have beat him pretty easily. But we got regular human cardio, you're not taking drugs. Like I gotta really be smart with these takedowns and this pacing, or really just fight to my tooth and nail and try to stretch that last takedown out and hope to lay on top for that last minute and win that round. But yeah, it's definitely going to change the course of things, but I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing because some big profile fighter going to complain.
That was going to be my question. What do you think this does for each champion now that it's allowed?
I can't really focus on each champion because that's like a whole
no, not. But in general, like how like the champions, they have gone to this point naturally, and now people that you know, didn't have the same cardio, like you said, didn't have the same power even. Like you think you think that it's going to affect them, that like they're going to come together as a organization of fighters and be like, listen, you guys need to nip this in the bud.
I don't think so. I feel like even they do, like they have had unions before about payment and that union like got stuck in the mud pretty quickly. Like was on that little bit of steam. That steam got stuffed out very quickly and quietly. So the fact that McGregor makes as much money as he does, and he still has all the fans that he does, and all the attraction that he does, and I think he has some ownership of the company. I think he had like a 2%, 3% stake in the company, or I don't know, enough of a stake in the company, along with the money he brings to the company. I think they're gonna allow it to stick around this way for probably until he retires or till his not till his odds, till his numbers, his pay-per-view number starts to drop. People start to turn away from McGregor, like, hey, this guy taking all these drugs, he's still losing. I'm getting tired of his gimmick and whatnot. It's just not exciting for me no more. Then we're like, all right, McGregor, we're not giving you the star power no more. We're bringing USADA back, and these other fighters who are relevant now are complaining about this, complaining about that. So now we're going to bring USADA back, and they're probably gonna say we just didn't. They're gonna make up some BS excuse like, well, our relationship had grown salty. We talked it out and we brought it back. It wasn't the case of we were trying to give no fighter no favoritism or nothing like that. It was just our relationship had grown sour. So it went sour, but we fixed it out instead of sanding over the obvious that they wanted their biggest cash cow to be able to do what he wants so that he can make them what they like to have, which is money. But yeah, I think it's gonna stick around. I don't think it's gonna be a long term because again, it's gonna be high profile fighters who are going to complain. They might say the issue with kind of trying to cancel why McGregor is around is the fact that a lot of these guys are gonna be tough guys. Like, I don't care, take all the drugs you want. I'll fight natural and I'll still beat you. It's gonna be like half the guys saying that. It's gonna be half the guys complaining. Most guys complaining gonna be guys that aren't really relevant anyway, like guys that's 500. Like, I could have been in the UFC longer, but you have all these roid using there. So like, we don't care. You were in here and gone. Like, your voice has no power. It's gonna take the guys actually on champions or number one contenders or stars, has star value, complaining, and that's probably gonna happen later. But it's not gonna happen to the degree while McGregor's here because it's gonna be overlap because it's not gonna be like all the champions. It's gonna be some here, some there, some guys saying this, some guys saying that. But that one guy or two guys or three, four, five guys saying something not gonna really matter too much until McGregor's gone because for them to overlap McGregor, it's gonna had to be like Adesanya complaining. It's going to be like Makachev complaining. It's going to have to be I don't know, John Jones. Even though he probably gonna be one of a lot of people soon will be taking it. And another thing, people saying John Jones is gonna stick around and fight Lesnar and fight this guy, but John Jones already seemed like he retired. But hey, who knows? Maybe he'll have a stick around for UFC 300 and they'll bring Brock Lesnar and they'll both juice up and have a exciting fight. Brock Lesnar versus Alistair Overeem too. But maybe that'll happen. But it's not like I don't think this really benefits him. And even like allegedly he is a drug user or whatnot. I'm just saying allegedly because I'm not the law, I'm not the commission, but allegedly, if he does, if this does happen, I don't think it's going to really benefit him anyway because he already has accomplished a lot. There's really no reason for him to stick around. He's going to drug to fight who? Who's left for him to fight? He's going to drug and try to fight Pavlovich and Aspinall for the same amount of money he would for fighting them not drugged up. It's like no point to that. He could walk away from sport with one more big win and sell T-shirts and do whatever because he'll be the GOAT or still be the GOAT. So yeah, he won't benefit from it, but yeah, as I said, I just feel like right now it's gonna be hard for them to override Conor McGregor, his power in the company. But once he's gone or once he loses his star power or his relevance or take a hit to his relevance, I think then those couple handful of voices or big voices are going to be able to make a change, just as Weidman's voice was able to make a change all them years ago. But yeah, any more final thoughts on these topics?
No, I think we covered most of the current events, the current situations that are unfolding inside the UFC and I guess outside. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can't wait for Conor McGregor to fight because he's going to be able to do everything. But yeah, if he loses, yeah, and I don't think he beats Michael Chandler, even whatever he's on. I just think right now Michael Chandler is better, and I think Conor McGregor has become complacent in the fact that he has so much money. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right, before we wrap up, so I want you guys to share your thoughts on these topics. You know, how you feel about the UFC 294 overall, how you feel about there's changes. So Volkanovski versus Makhachev, or Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2. How you feel about Chimaev versus Usman? How you feel about the dogs? Any dogs you guys are interested in? And finally, how you feel about USADA? Like, you feel like it's wrong that they're doing this favoritism for McGregor? Or you feel like, oh, he make the money so he can do what he wants? So like what he said in that little viral video, he said to Chandler, like, you do what you're told. Like, so, you know, he already got that I'm the boss type mentality. So you feel like you agree with that? Like, oh, he's the boss, he can do whatever he wants, or he's the star, he can do whatever he wants. And how do you feel like this is going to affect it going forward? I feel like in reality, it's not going to really benefit. Well, it's going to benefit McGregor monetarily wise. I don't feel like he's going to have great success. Like continuous success. He might be able to get 1 or 2 wins, but I don't feel like he's going to have the great success. There's going to be other fighters who are going to have greater success than him from, you know, the people that were, you know, really benefit when during the drug eras, or the type of fighters that were benefiting during drug eras, or type of people and fighters. Those guys are going to do well. They're going to pack up wins and come out the woodwork. Then these muscle bound guys that, you know, had no cardio, all of a sudden have cardio again. They be like big and chiseled and wrestling for 15 minutes. Those guys are going to benefit once again. But yeah, how y'all feel about that? And one final thing, we already talked about contests and stuff. So I'll remind you of that again. I'm not even going to really mention it, but I'm going to say I see you guys I see the pattern yet again. The lowest podcast we have had since, like, of the 4 podcasts or 3 podcasts that have been posted has been the contest thing. So as I said, people like say they want contest, say they want that, but is it ever really truly worth it for anything? Is it worth it for you? Is it worth it for us? Is it really ever worth it? But hopefully by the time we, like, UFC 294 comes around, or, you know, start to come around and we start to really push for it more, hopefully you guys are actually invested and actually competing and this, I'm trying to say the word, you guys are participating. That's what I would say. You guys are actually participating, but because the video didn't show it. The other videos were all over 100. That video is still sitting at like 77. But hey, I ain't gonna tag it in this video, but you could go in there and search through it, or type in TPWc and maybe it'll pull up for you, or just type in podcast in my name or Nikki Best's name and it'll pull up for you. But yeah, don't be those guys, don't be those girls. Participate. It's fun. It's free money. And, you know, you are true supporters or whatever you want to be, or you just truly like this channel and our channel or this channel, whatnot. It's another way to interact. Like, I'm literally in the Discord pretty much every single day. So it's another avenue to talk instead of just trying to throw a comment, you know, in the void. You in there literally right there with me. So, and Nikki Best and plenty of other people that you could interact with. But that's the video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to me and to Nikki Best. And that's the video. Peace.